My dear friends, for too long, you have been taught that you are powerless, that life happens to you, that you must accept whatever circumstances have been dealt to you. But I tell you now, with every fiber of my being, with every breath of truth that flows through me, this is the greatest lie ever told to man. You are not powerless. You are not victims. You are not at the mercy of a cruel and capricious fate. The universe, this magnificent, responsive, living field of infinite possibility, is not your master. It is your servant. It does not command you. You command it. It does not dictate to you. You dictate to it. The universe will obey you, must obey you, because you are the operant power in your own experience. Today, I will strip away the veils of illusion that have kept you in bondage. I will show you the mechanics of creation itself. I will teach you to pray not as beggars, but as gods. For that is what you are. Gods in amnesia, creators who have forgotten their power, artists who have lost sight of their canvas. Listen carefully, for what I am about to tell you will shatter everything you think you know about the nature of existence. Reality, this solid, seemingly immutable world around you, is not what it appears to be. It is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is not even real in the way you have been taught to understand reality. Reality is consciousness, is mind. It is imagination made visible. The world you see, touch, and experience is nothing more than your own consciousness pushed out, objectified, made manifest in the theater of space and time. I have seen the faces of those who believe themselves trapped by circumstances, and I have witnessed the transformation of those who discovered their power. The difference between them is not luck, not privilege, not even circumstances. It is understanding. The mystics of old knew this truth. They spoke in parables and symbols because the human mind, trapped in its limited understanding, could not grasp the full magnitude of what they were revealing. When they said the kingdom of heaven is within you, they were not speaking metaphorically. They were stating a literal fact. The power to create heaven on earth lies within your very consciousness. Modern science, in its relentless pursuit of truth, has stumbled upon this same revelation. At the quantum level, reality exists in a state of infinite potential, waves of possibility that collapse into particles of experience only when observed. You are that observer. You are the one who chooses, moment by moment, which possibility becomes your reality. But here is where science and spirituality meet in perfect harmony. The observer is not passive. The observer is creative. The observer shapes reality through the very act of observation. And what determines the nature of that observation? Your assumptions, your beliefs, your dominant feeling states, your imagination. Assumption, this simple word, holds the key to all creation. When you assume something to be true, when you accept it as fact in your consciousness, you set in motion forces that must bring it to pass. The universe has no choice in the matter. It must conform to your assumptions, because assumption is the creative power of consciousness itself. I have seen miracles born from assumption. I have witnessed the impossible become inevitable through the power of one person's unwavering assumption. A woman assumes she is loved, and love flows to her from sources she never could have imagined. A man assumes he is successful, and opportunities appear as if the universe itself is conspiring to fulfill his assumption. But I have also seen the tragic power of negative assumption. People assume they are unlucky, and misfortune follows them like a shadow. They assume they are unworthy, and life reflects that unworthiness back to them in 1,000 painful ways. They assume they are limited, and limitation becomes their prison. The universe does not judge your assumptions. It does not deem them right or wrong, good or bad. It simply obeys them. It is the perfect servant, responding to your every command with mathematical precision. But understand this: your assumptions are your commands. Every assumption you hold is an order given to the universe, and the universe must fill that order. This is why I implore you to examine your assumptions with the care of a jeweler examining a precious stone. What are you assuming about yourself? About your possibilities? About your worth? About your future? These assumptions are not idle thoughts. They are the very blueprints from which your reality is constructed. I remember a man who came to me in despair. He had been unemployed for months, and everywhere he looked, he saw only rejection and closed doors. The world is against me, he said. There are no opportunities for someone like me. I looked at him with compassion and said, "My friend, you are absolutely right. As long as you assume there are no opportunities, there will be none. As long as you assume the world is against you, it will be. But what if you dared to assume the opposite?" This man, through practice and persistence, began to assume that opportunities were everywhere, that the world was eager to reward his talents, that he was exactly what employers were looking for. Within weeks, not days, but weeks, his world transformed. The same employers who had previously rejected him were now calling him. The same world that had seemed hostile now appeared friendly and welcoming. What changed? Not the world. The world is always neutral. What changed was his assumption, and with it, his reality. Oh, but how the word prayer has been corrupted, how it has been twisted into an act of begging, of pleading, of desperate supplication to a distant and often indifferent God. I tell you now, this is not prayer, this is spiritual poverty. True prayer is not begging or asking. True prayer is not hoping or wishing or pleading. It is the art of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is the conscious act of inhabiting the state of consciousness that corresponds to your desire already being real. When you pray effectively, you do not reach outward with empty hands. You reach inward to the infinite storehouse of possibilities that exists within your own consciousness. You select the reality you wish to experience, and you feel it as true. You inhabit it. You become it. I have taught this truth for decades, and I have seen it transform lives in ways that would be called miraculous if people understood that miracles are simply the natural result of conscious creation. A mother prays for her child's healing, not by begging a distant God, but by assuming the feeling of her child already being whole and perfect. A man prays for abundance not by pleading for money, but by inhabiting the consciousness of already being prosperous. This is the prayer that moves mountains, that parts the waters, that brings the dead back to life. Not because it convinces some external deity to intervene, but because it aligns consciousness with the reality that already exists in the infinite field of possibilities. When you pray as I teach you to pray, you do not pray for something to happen. You pray from the reality of it already having happened. You thank the universe, not for what you hope to receive, but for what you already possess in consciousness. You feel the gratitude, the joy, the relief of having received what you desire. And here is the beautiful paradox. The moment you truly feel your desire as already fulfilled, the desire itself disappears. You no longer want it because you have it. You no longer seek it because you are it. You have closed the gap between desire and fulfillment, not by getting what you want, but by becoming what you want. If assumption is the seed, then feeling is the soil in which that seed grows. Without feeling, assumption is merely an intellectual exercise. With feeling, assumption becomes a creative force that reshapes reality itself. Feeling is the secret. These words contain more power than entire libraries of philosophy. Your feeling state is your creative state. Your emotions are not just reactions to circumstances, they are the very forces that create circumstances. I have observed people who intellectually understand these principles, but fail to apply them successfully. They know that assumption creates reality, but they cannot seem to manifest their desires. Why? Because they are missing the crucial element, feeling. They assume with their minds, but not with their hearts. They think the right thoughts, but do not feel the right feelings. The universe does not respond to your thoughts. It responds to your feelings. It responds to your emotional state. It responds to the vibration you emit through your being. When you feel truly abundant, you attract abundance. When you feel genuinely loved, you attract love. When you feel deeply grateful, you attract more reasons to be grateful. But here is where most people stumble. They try to feel good about their current circumstances instead of feeling good about their desired circumstances. They wait for evidence before they allow themselves to feel fulfilled. They make their emotional state dependent on external conditions. This is backwards. This is the thinking of the old world, the world of effect, rather than cause. You do not feel good because good things happen to you. Good things happen to you because you feel good. You do not feel loved because someone loves you. Someone loves you because you feel loved. I remember a woman who came to me broken-hearted. She had been rejected by the man she loved, and she was convinced that she was unlovable. Her heart was closed. Her spirit was crushed, and she radiated the energy of rejection and unworthiness. How can I attract love? She asked me, when I feel so unloved. I said to her, my dear, you have the sequence reversed. You do not wait to feel loved until someone loves you. You feel loved first, and then someone must love you. The universe is a mirror, and it can only reflect back to you what you are already being. She began to practice feeling loved, not because of any external reason, but simply because she chose to feel loved. She imagined herself being cherished, adored, treasured. She felt the warmth of being held, the joy of being chosen, the security of being valued. She did this not once, but daily, until this feeling became her natural state. Within months, not one but several men entered her life, each recognizing in her the very quality she had been cultivating within herself. She had not changed anything external. She had simply changed her internal state, and the external world had no choice but to conform to that change. The goal of all these teachings is to help you live from the end. This means living not from the state of wanting your desire, but from the state of having it. It means not seeking what you wish to be, but being what you wish to be. It means not hoping for a different future, but living from that future now. Living from the end requires a fundamental shift in identity. You must become the version of yourself who naturally possesses what you desire. You must walk as that person, speak as that person, think as that person, feel as that person. When this becomes your natural state, not an act you put on, but the truth of who you are, manifestation is not just possible, it is inevitable. I have observed that people struggle with this concept because they confuse having with getting. They think living from the end means pretending to have what they don't have. But living from the end is not pretense, it is presence. It is being present to the reality that already exists in consciousness. A man who lives from the end of financial abundance does not pretend he has money when he doesn't. He lives from the consciousness of abundance. He feels abundant. He thinks abundant thoughts. He makes abundant choices. He radiates the energy of abundance. And because the universe must mirror consciousness, abundance has no choice but to manifest in his experience. This is the great paradox of creation. You must be it before you can have it. You must become it before you can receive it. You must live from it before you can live in it. The external world is always the effect, never the cause. Consciousness is always the cause, never the effect. I remember a young artist who dreamed of international recognition. She had talent, but she had not yet achieved the success she desired. I taught her to live from the end of already being a celebrated artist. She began to feel the gratitude of having her work displayed in galleries around the world. She imagined the joy of receiving accolades from critics and collectors. She felt the satisfaction of being recognized for her genius. At first, nothing seemed to change in her external circumstances. But gradually, subtly, her world began to shift. She started making different choices. She began to value her work differently. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew her worth. And the world, sensing this change in her, began to respond differently to her. Within 2 years, her work was being shown internationally. Critics were calling her a rising star. Collectors were seeking out her pieces. She had not become successful in order to feel successful. She had felt successful first, and success had followed as naturally as morning follows night. In the process of conscious creation, there comes a moment that is perhaps the most difficult for the human mind to understand and accept, the moment of rest. After you have assumed, after you have felt, after you have lived from the end, you must enter what I call the Sabbath, a state of perfect rest and complete trust. This is the moment when you stop trying to make it happen. This is the moment when you stop looking for signs and searching for evidence. This is the moment when you simply rest in the knowing that it is done. You have planted the seed in the fertile soil of consciousness. And now you must trust that it will grow in its own time and in its own way. This is where most people fail. They assume their desire fulfilled. They feel it as true. They live from the end. And then they immediately begin to worry about how it will manifest. They look for signs of its coming. They become anxious when they don't see immediate results. They dig up the seed to see if it's growing. But the law of manifestation requires a period of gestation. Just as a seed must spend time in the darkness of the soil before it can break through into the light, your assumption must spend time in the darkness of the invisible before it can emerge into the visible. This is not delay. This is the natural rhythm of creation. During this Sabbath period, you must guard your assumption jealously. You must not allow doubt to creep in. You must not allow impatience to disturb your peace. You must not allow the evidence of your senses to contradict the truth of your assumption. You must rest in the certainty that what you have assumed is already true in the only realm that matters, the realm of consciousness. I have seen people manifest their desires in days, and I have seen others take months or even years. The difference is not in the difficulty of the desire, it is in the quality of the Sabbath. Those who manifest quickly are those who enter the Sabbath completely. They assume, they feel, they rest, and they trust. They do not waver. They do not doubt. They do not interfere with the natural process of manifestation. As you practice these teachings, as you begin to live from the consciousness of your desires fulfilled, you will start to notice something magical happening in your world. Synchronicities will multiply. Meaningful coincidences will increase. The right people will appear at the right time. The right opportunities will present themselves. The right resources will become available. These are not accidents. These are not coincidences. These are the universe rearranging itself to match your new assumptions. These are the signs that your consciousness is successfully impressing itself upon the field of infinite possibility. Do not be surprised by these signs. Expect them. Do not be amazed by these synchronicities. Welcome them. But do not make the mistake of becoming so fascinated by the signs that you forget the state. The signs are the effect. The state is the cause. The signs are the shadow. The state is the substance. I remember a woman who was assuming the reality of her perfect marriage. She had been single for years, but she lived from the consciousness of being happily married. She felt the joy of sharing her life with someone who loved and cherished her. She imagined coming home to a loving partner. She felt the warmth of being chosen and valued. As she persisted in this assumption, signs began to appear. She would see couples everywhere, holding hands, laughing together, radiating love. She would overhear conversations about weddings and anniversaries. She would find herself in situations where she was surrounded by happily married people. Some might have seen these as painful reminders of what she didn't have, but she understood them as signs that her assumption was taking root in consciousness. Soon, a friend invited her to a small gathering. There, she met a man who seemed to recognize her instantly. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Their connection was immediate and profound. Within a year they were married, and she found herself living the exact reality she had been assuming all along. The signs were not random. They were the bridge between her assumption and its manifestation. They were the universe's way of preparing her for the reality she had already claimed in consciousness. The deepest and most profound work of conscious creation is not the manifestation of things, it is the transformation of identity. When you truly understand and apply these teachings, you do not just get different results, you become a different person. You do not just change your circumstances, you change yourself. This transformation is not superficial. It is not merely a change in behavior or attitude. It is a fundamental shift in your understanding of who you are and what you are capable of. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as the creator of circumstances. You begin to understand yourself not as a passive observer of life, but as an active participant in the creation of life. This shift in identity is perhaps the most precious gift these teachings can offer. Because once you know who you truly are, Once you understand your power, your divinity, your creative authority, you can never again be fooled into believing that you are powerless. You can never again be convinced that you are at the mercy of forces beyond your control. I have watched people undergo this transformation, and it is beautiful to behold. A man who once saw himself as unlucky begins to see himself as blessed. A woman who once believed she was unworthy begins to know herself as precious. A person who once felt powerless begins to recognize their infinite creative potential. This transformation is not immediate. It is a process. It requires patience, persistence, and practice. But every time you successfully assume a new reality and see it manifest, you strengthen your understanding of who you are. Every time you revise your past and see its effects change, you deepen your knowledge of your power. Every time you live from the end and watch the beginning rearrange itself, you confirm your divine nature. The path of conscious creation is not always easy. There will be moments when doubt creeps in. There will be times when the evidence of your senses contradicts your assumptions. There will be periods when it seems like nothing is working, when your desires seem as distant as ever. In these moments, remember that persistence is the price of admission to the kingdom of fulfilled desires. The universe is testing not your worthiness, but your commitment. It is asking not whether you deserve your desires, but whether you are willing to persist in your assumption despite contrary evidence. I have observed that most people give up just before their breakthrough. They assume, they feel, they even begin to see signs, and then they encounter a challenge that seems to contradict their assumption. Instead of persisting, they abandon their assumption and return to their old patterns of thought and feeling. But those who persist, who continue to assume despite contrary evidence, who maintain their feeling states despite challenging circumstances, these are the ones who experience what the world calls miracles. They are the ones who transform their lives completely. They are the ones who prove that the universe will indeed obey consciousness. Persistence does not mean strain or struggle. It means returning again and again to your assumption, to your feeling, to your state of being. It means gently correcting yourself when you slip back into old patterns. It means choosing your desired reality over and over again, regardless of what your senses tell you. But with great power comes great responsibility. When you understand that you are the creator of your experience, you must also accept responsibility for what you have created. This is not a burden, it is a liberation. Because if you created your current reality, you can create a different one. But this responsibility extends beyond yourself. When you know that consciousness creates reality, you become responsible for the consciousness you hold, not just about your own life, but about the world around you. You become responsible for the assumptions you make about others, the judgments you pass, the energy you contribute to the collective human experience. This is why I teach not just the mechanics of manifestation, but the ethics of creation. Use your power wisely. Assume the best for others as well as for yourself. See the world not as it appears, but as it could be. Hold the vision of a world filled with love, abundance, peace, and joy. Your individual consciousness contributes to the collective consciousness of humanity. I have seen people use these teachings to transform not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone around them. A teacher who sees the genius in every student helps those students discover their own brilliance. A parent who assumes the best for their children helps those children become their best selves. A leader who holds the vision of a thriving community helps that community thrive. My dear friends, as we conclude this journey together, I want you to understand one final crucial truth. You are not learning something new. You are remembering something ancient. You are not acquiring a power that is foreign to you. You are reclaiming a power that has always been yours. You are gods. You are creators. You are the artists of your own experience. This is your divine heritage. This is your birthright. This is not fantasy. This is your reality. The universe will obey you because you are the universe. The universe will serve you because you are the universe experiencing itself subjectively. The universe will respond to your consciousness because consciousness is all there is. You have been playing a game of hide and seek with yourself. You have been pretending to be powerless so that you could experience the joy of discovering your power. You have been pretending to be separate so that you could experience the bliss of remembering your unity. You have been pretending to be human so that you could experience the wonder of awakening to your divinity. But the game is over now. The hiding time is finished. It is time to seek and find. It is time to remember who you are, to reclaim your power, to step into your role as the conscious creator of your experience. The universe is waiting. It has always been waiting. It is your faithful servant, your obedient mirror, your loving partner in the dance of creation. Speak to it through your assumptions. Command it through your feelings. Direct it through your consciousness. And watch as it responds with perfect precision to your every instruction. You are not powerless. You are not victims. And you are not at the mercy of circumstances. You never were. You are the creators of circumstances, the authors of your story, the architects of your reality. The begging is over. The pleading is finished. The waiting is done. Go forth and create. The universe will obey you because you are the universe. And the universe always obeys itself. This is your truth, your power, your destiny. Claim it, live it, be it, and watch as the world transforms around you, reflecting back to you the magnificent reality of who you truly are.
There is a secret power within you, one so profound that it shapes the world you walk through. This power is not found in effort, nor in struggle, nor in chasing. It is found in assumption. To act like you already won is to claim victory before the world can show it to you. When you live from the end, you are no longer begging, waiting, or hoping. You are being. You carry yourself with the quiet confidence of one who already possesses what they once longed for. And life, with all its seeming resistance, bends itself to match that inner certainty. The world around you may appear unchanged, the evidence may seem distant, but the senses are deceivers. What you hold within, that feeling of accomplishment, that conviction of success, is already more real than the ground beneath your feet. You do not wait for proof, you create proof by being it first. Imagine walking as though the victory were yours. How would you speak? How would you breathe? How would you meet each day? When you assume that state, the energy you radiate commands circumstances to align. It is not arrogance, it is faith, not pretense, but truth in seed form. You must dare to move as though nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, nothing is delayed, for in truth, all is already complete. Your task is only to accept it inwardly, to persist in the feeling of fulfillment until the outer world reflects it back to you. To act like you already won is to realize that winning was never in the future, it was always now. Imagination is the seed of reality. Everything you see around you, every building, invention, piece of art, or movement of society, began first as a thought, a vision, an unseen possibility held in the quiet space of the mind. The outer world is nothing more than the shadow cast by inner conviction. Before there was form, there was an image. Before there was proof, there was belief. And before there was reality, there was imagination. When you allow yourself to imagine, you are not playing with fantasies. You are touching the raw material of creation. The mind is the soil, and every thought, every feeling is a seed planted within it. What you choose to water with attention and belief takes root and eventually grows into visible experiences. To assume and feel something is true within is to give that seed life. The longer you hold it, the more real it becomes, until it cannot help but break through into the physical world. This is why doubt is so destructive. It uproots the seed before it can grow. When you question, when you waver, when you look for proof outside before cultivating conviction inside, you starve the soil of its power. But when you boldly declare something as already yours and nurture that feeling as if it were undeniable, you accelerate its unfolding. The world has no choice but to echo what you have assumed to be real. Consider how often you have lived out this principle unconsciously. You may have feared something deeply, held it in your imagination, and then watched as it manifested in your life. That was not chance. It was the seed you watered. In the same way, when you deliberately choose to assume the best, to imagine the outcome you desire, and to live from the feeling of its completion, you turn imagination into destiny. It is not about straining to make something happen. A seed does not struggle to grow. It only requires the right environment. In the same way, your imagination does not need constant effort, only persistence and faith. Feel it real, as though it were already so, and you provide the nourishment for that inner picture to blossom. The circumstances, people, and opportunities required will be drawn into place. Not because you chased them, but because your inner world commanded their appearance. The truth is that imagination is not a passive daydream. It is creation itself, working quietly, invisibly, faithfully. You are never imagining in vain. Every image you hold with feeling shapes tomorrow's reality. To dismiss imagination as just fantasy is to overlook the engine of all existence. What you feel within is always moving toward expression without. Therefore, guard your inner world with care. Plant only the seeds you wish to see bloom. Nourish them with persistence. Protect them from doubt, and allow yourself to feel the joy of their fulfillment even before it is visible. The invisible is more real than the visible, for it is the cause. Your imagination is not a weakness or a toy. It is the birthplace of every reality you will ever walk through. To live from the end is to step into the reality of your desire as though it were already complete. It is not about waiting for proof, nor is it about wishing or hoping for some future event to occur. It is about inhabiting the state of the fulfilled wish now, with such conviction that the world cannot help but rearrange itself to reflect your inner certainty. When you live from the end, you are not striving for an outcome. You are embodying it. You breathe it, feel it, and carry yourself in alignment with the truth that it is already yours. Think about how a person behaves once they have already achieved what they once longed for. Their tone changes, their posture shifts. Their eyes carry a quiet calm, a confidence that no struggle can shake. There is no desperation, no frantic chasing, no fear of loss. There is only assurance. To live from the end is to borrow that assurance now, before the outer world acknowledges it. It is to walk with the victory in your step, even while the scoreboard of life still seems undecided. The power of this practice lies in emotion. Words and thoughts alone are not enough if they are not clothed in feeling. You may tell yourself, I am successful, I am loved, I am abundant, but if inside you still feel lack, fear, or separation, the seed cannot grow. Living from the end means summoning the emotions that belong to your fulfilled desire. If you long for love, feel the warmth of being cherished now. If you seek abundance, feel the security of freedom now. If you desire success, breathe in the confidence of accomplishment now. These feelings are not make-believe. They are the magnetic force that shapes your reality. This is not pretense, nor is it self-deception. It is the recognition that the outer world is always a mirror of your inner state. By embodying the end within, you establish a new cause that the external must eventually reflect. The law is simple. Life responds to who you are being, not to what you are wanting. When you persist in being the person who already possesses the desire, the world bends to accommodate that identity. At first, it may feel unnatural. You may hear the voice of doubt whispering, but it is not here yet. Look at your circumstances. Look at the evidence. That is the trap of living from appearances rather than truth. To live from the end is to defy appearances, to remain faithful to the unseen, and to carry yourself with the dignity of one who already has. The more you persist, the more natural it becomes, until it feels impossible to think otherwise. When you practice this daily, your actions begin to align without effort. You make decisions as one who has already won. You walk through challenges with calm certainty because you know the outcome is secure. You no longer seek validation from outside because the victory is already established inside. And then, as if by inevitability, the outer world shifts to catch up with the inner. To live from the end is to live in truth. It is to acknowledge that creation is finished, that every possibility already exists, and that your role is only to embody the one you choose. By claiming it now, by feeling it real, you draw it from the unseen into the seen. This is the essence of mastery, to live today as if the promise were already fulfilled and to watch tomorrow reveal it in form. Assumption is the invisible hand that shapes the course of your life. Doubt is the shadow that seeks to cancel it. Both live within you, but only one can rule at a time. To live by assumption is to declare with certainty that what you inwardly accept as true must come to pass. To live in doubt is to feed uncertainty, hesitation, and fear until they build a wall around you. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck lies not in talent, resources, or circumstances, but in what they dare to assume about themselves and their world. The world does not respond to your fears unless you give them authority. Fear is powerless without your belief. The moment you assume fear to be real, the moment you give it weight, it begins to shape events in your life. Many people live as though their worries are prophecies, rehearsing in imagination the very outcomes they dread. And so those fears, nurtured in thought and feeling, grow into form. What they do not realize is that the same power that gives fear its strength is the power that can turn assumption into triumph. Assumption requires courage, for it demands that you cling to conviction even when every outer sense denies it. It is easier to doubt because doubt asks nothing of you except surrender to appearances. But assumption is bold. It says, I decide the outcome, not circumstance. It says, what I inwardly claim as true will become true no matter what the world shows me now. This is not stubbornness, it is faith in action. The outer world is nothing more than a delayed reflection of the inner. If you persist in assumption, the reflection must change. Think of how you carry yourself when you assume success. Your words have authority, your posture conveys certainty, and your decisions spring from clarity. Contrast that with the hesitancy of doubt, second-guessing, shrinking, holding back. These two states create two very different worlds. When you assume, life bends to meet you at that level of conviction. When you doubt, life mirrors your uncertainty. The key is persistence. An assumption entertained for a moment may flicker out, but one held consistently becomes unshakable. It takes root, deepens into feeling, and soon feels more real than any contradiction. Doubt may still knock at the door, whispering, "What if it doesn't work? What if you fail?" But you must refuse it entry. You answer doubt not with struggle, but with a calm return to your chosen assumption. Again and again, you bring your focus back until doubt loses its voice. The world is not as solid and fixed as it appears. It is pliable, obedient, responsive to the convictions you impress upon it. You need not chase results nor fight against obstacles. Simply assume with certainty that what you desire is already secured. Live as though it were unquestionable. Let that conviction saturate your words, your emotions, your imagination. When you do, the world has no choice but to echo your assumption, because reality always bends to the strength of your inner certainty. Silencing the senses is one of the greatest disciplines of creation, for the outer world often presents a picture that stands in complete contradiction to the vision you hold within. The eyes may see lack, the ears may hear rejection, the body may feel limitation, yet none of these appearances hold true power. They are temporary shadows, shifting reflections of states you once entertained. If you allow them to dictate your belief, you will remain trapped by circumstance. But if you learn to silence the testimony of the senses and persist in the inner knowing of your fulfilled desire, the outer must eventually bow to your persistence. The senses are useful servants, but terrible masters. They report only what is, not what can be. They echo the past, not the promise. When you measure your possibility by what the senses reveal, you limit yourself to repetition of what has already been. But when you withdraw attention from appearances and turn inward to the unseen, you step into the creative act. For all change begins invisibly, in silence, before the world takes shape. This is why stillness is so powerful. To quiet the noise of doubt, fear, and contradiction is to enter the sanctuary where imagination rules. In that stillness, you no longer consult the evidence of your circumstances. You consult only the truth you choose to accept within. Perhaps the world tells you, you are not enough, it cannot be done, the door is closed. Yet in silence, you dare to imagine the opposite. You see yourself accomplished, fulfilled, victorious. You feel the joy of completion as though it were already present. And in that inner certainty, you plant the seed that will overturn every outer appearance. It is not always easy. The senses scream loudly when circumstances seem impossible. They tempt you to give up, to agree with their verdict. But persistence is stronger than appearances. Each time you return to the vision, each time you reaffirm the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you weaken the hold of outer contradiction. The senses may shout today, but if you refuse to bow, their voice will fade, and the inner truth will take command. Think of a gardener who plants a seed. The soil shows nothing at first. To the senses, it appears empty. If the gardener judged by appearances, he would dig it up and call it hopeless. But the wise gardener knows growth is unseen before it is seen. He persists in watering, believing in the invisible process beneath the soil. In the same way, your desire is already growing beneath the surface of the unseen. To silence the senses is to water it faithfully, without demanding instant proof. In time, appearances will change, because they must. They are not fixed, but fluid. They are obedient to the state you occupy within. When you silence the senses and hold to the inner vision, you command the unseen to arrange itself into form. The contradiction dissolves, the outer aligns, and what once seemed impossible stands before you as inevitable. This is the power of inner knowing. It does not ask permission from appearances, it overrides them. Your state is the magnet that draws everything into your life. It is not your scattered wishes nor your desperate wants that shape reality. It is the state you consistently embody. You may long for success, whisper affirmations of wealth, or plead for love, but if inwardly you remain in a state of lack, insecurity, or fear, you will only attract experiences that echo that inner condition. The world does not deliver to you what you desire, it mirrors who you are being. A state is more than a passing thought. It is the atmosphere of your being, the emotional and mental climate in which you live. When you wake in the morning, you step into a state. When you walk through your day, you carry it with you like an aura. Others feel it, opportunities align to it, and events arrange themselves in obedience to it. If your state is one of confidence, the world reflects opportunities to match it. If your state is one of doubt, you will find endless confirmations for your uncertainty. The state itself is the magnet, pulling to you the experiences that correspond to its frequency. This truth is often misunderstood. People assume they can force life to give them what they want while remaining the same within. But desire without transformation is powerless. You cannot expect abundance while persisting in the state of lack. You cannot demand love while dwelling in the state of loneliness. The law is unchanging. You attract not what you ask for, but what you embody. If you wish to change your life, you must first change your state. How do you do this? By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled now. If you long for wealth, ask yourself, what would it feel like to already have it? Not someday, not eventually, but now. Let that feeling saturate you until it becomes natural. Walk, speak, and think from that place. The state will draw to itself the opportunities, connections, and conditions that match it. In the same way, if you seek love, you must first embody the state of being loved. Feel cherished, feel chosen, feel secure. As you persist in this state, the magnet begins its silent work, and the outer world rearranges to reflect what you are being. The power of this law is that it bypasses effort and struggle. You do not need to chase or force. You only need to occupy the state, and the rest follows with certainty. Just as a magnet does not strain to attract iron, but does so effortlessly by its very nature, your state pulls life into alignment without struggle. The challenge is not to make things happen, but to remain faithful to the state you choose to embody. Every moment is an invitation to shift. You are never trapped, for states are fluid. You can rise from one to another by the simple act of assumption. Dare to leave behind the state of lack and put on the state of fulfillment. The world will not resist you. It will mirror you. For in truth, you are not waiting for change. You are the change. Your state is the magnet, and the life you live is nothing more than its reflection. Victory does not lie somewhere in the distant future, waiting for you to earn it through endless struggle. Victory exists now. It is already written, already accomplished in the unseen, and your task is not to chase it, but to claim it. The moment you act, speak, and think as if the result were already secured, you align yourself with the reality of triumph, and the world cannot help but echo your certainty. Life is not about becoming victorious. It is about awakening to the truth that victory was yours from the beginning. Think of how a champion carries themselves after winning. There is no desperation in their voice, no doubt in their posture. Their words carry calm assurance. Their presence radiates confidence. Now imagine embodying that same spirit before the evidence appears. That is the essence of living in victory. You are no longer waiting for proof, you are proof. You no longer plead for success. You move as though success has already unfolded. This is not pretense, but recognition of the deeper truth. Creation is finished, and the outcome you desire already exists. When you live in this state, everything about you changes. Your thoughts are no longer consumed with what if I fail, but with how does one who has succeeded think, feel, and act. Your words shift from doubt to declaration. You stop rehearsing fear and begin rehearsing fulfillment. Even your actions carry a quiet authority because they are not driven by need but by completeness. You are no longer striving for victory, you are expressing it. Of course, appearances may try to convince you otherwise. The senses may insist that nothing has changed, that the victory is far off, that obstacles remain. But these are echoes of the old state, not the truth of your being. To persist in victory is to deny appearances the power to dictate your belief. You see beyond them, standing firm in the inner knowing that the result is already secured. This persistence is what causes the outer to yield. It cannot resist the force of one who lives as though the end is already accomplished. Victory is not a destination, it is a state. The more you occupy it, the more natural it becomes. At first, it may feel like pretending, like putting on a costume that doesn't quite fit. But as you persist, the costume becomes your skin, and soon you cannot imagine being anything else. That is when the shift occurs. The world, sensing the vibration of your certainty, bends itself to mirror it. Opportunities open, people respond, doors unlock. Not because you forced them, but because you dared to live from victory rather than chase it. To act, speak, and think as if the result is already secured is the highest form of faith. It is declaring that you trust the unseen more than the seen, the promise more than the problem. And when you live in that state, life has no choice but to reveal your victory in visible form. For the truth is this, you do not become victorious, you already are. The only task is to claim it now, to live as though it is done, and to watch the world confirm what you have already accepted within. The truth is simple yet profound. Everything begins within you. Imagination plants the seed, assumption waters it, persistence protects it, and your state brings it into form. When you dare to live from the end, silence the contradictions of the senses, and hold unwaveringly to your inner knowing, life has no choice but to reflect your certainty. Victory is not tomorrow, it is now. The moment you accept it, embody it, and live as though it were already yours, you step into the reality of triumph. So carry yourself as one who has already won. Walk with the quiet confidence of fulfillment, speak with the tone of completion, and think with the clarity of certainty. Do not wait for proof. Do not beg for signs. Live it now, for what you claim inwardly must unfold outwardly. The world bends to your conviction, and all you truly desire is already secure. Thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing to awaken the power within you. If this message resonated with you, share it, live it, and remember always, act like you already won.
Good evening, my friends. Tonight I am going to tell you something that will shock you, something that contradicts the entire positive thinking movement that has swept the world. Stop being positive. Stop trying to think positive thoughts. Stop forcing yourself to feel positive emotions. Stop pretending everything is wonderful when it is not. Because positive thinking, as it is commonly practiced, is one of the greatest obstacles to true manifestation. I can see the confusion on your faces. But Neville, you're thinking, haven't you taught us that our thoughts create reality? That we should think about what we want, not what we don't want? Yes, I have taught this. But there is a vast difference between conscious creation through assumption and the desperate, exhausting practice of positive thinking that most people engage in. And tonight, I am going to show you that difference. I am going to teach you what to be instead of positive. And when you understand this, when you make this shift, you will discover a power far greater than positive thinking could ever provide. Let me explain what is wrong with positive thinking. As most people practice it, positive thinking, as taught by the masses, is a reaction to negativity. It is an attempt to cover up negative feelings with positive thoughts. It is forcing yourself to smile when you want to cry. It is repeating affirmations while your heart screams the opposite. It is pretending everything is fine when you are actually drowning. This is not creation. This is suppression. And suppression does not change reality. It only buries your true feelings deeper, where they continue to create from the shadows. Watch what happens when someone practices positive thinking. They wake up feeling anxious about money. So they tell themselves, I am abundant. Money flows to me easily. But underneath the words, the anxiety remains. They are not changing their state. They are covering it up. They look at their empty bed and feel lonely. So they affirm, I am loved. My perfect partner is coming to me. But the loneliness is still there, hidden beneath the positive words. They are not creating love. They are denying loneliness. They receive a medical diagnosis and feel afraid. So they declare, I am perfectly healthy. My body is healing. But the fear persists, masked by positive statements. They are not assuming health. They are fighting sickness. This is the great deception of positive thinking. It keeps you in a state of resistance. You are resisting what is trying to cover it up with what you wish were true. And resistance is not creation. Resistance is struggle. And struggle cannot manifest. Here is what most people do not understand. It is not the words that create. It is the state of consciousness from which the words arise. You can speak the most positive affirmations. You can visualize the most wonderful outcomes. You can paste your walls with vision boards. But if underneath all of this, your consciousness is rooted in lack, in fear, in unworthiness, then lack, fear, and unworthiness is what you will create. The universe does not respond to your words. It responds to your state. And no amount of positive thinking can change your state if you are using positive thinking to avoid feeling what you actually feel. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me exhausted from positive thinking. She had been affirming abundance for 3 years. She had vision boards. She had mantras. She had positive affirmations on sticky notes all over her house. But she was still broke. In fact, her financial situation had gotten worse. I asked her, when you speak these affirmations, what do you feel? She said, I feel like I'm trying really hard to believe them. I feel like if I stop saying them, everything will fall apart. I feel desperate to make them true. There is your problem, I said. You are not creating from abundance. You are creating from desperation disguised as positivity. The universe does not hear your words. It feels your state. And your state is desperation, covered with a thin layer of positive thinking. She began to cry. But if I stop being positive, won't everything get worse? Won't I attract more negativity? No, I replied. Because I am not asking you to be negative. I am asking you to be something far more powerful than either positive or negative. I am asking you to be certain. Here is what you should be. Instead of positive, be certain. Certainty is not positive or negative. Certainty is beyond both. Certainty is the unshakable knowing that what you desire is already yours. Regardless of current circumstances, regardless of evidence, regardless of what anyone else says or believes. Positive thinking says, I hope this works. I'm trying to believe. I'm focusing on the good. Certainty says, it is already done. There is nothing to hope for because it already is. There is nothing to try to believe because I already know. Do you see the difference? Positive thinking is effort. Certainty is rest. Positive thinking is hoping. Certainty is knowing. Positive thinking looks toward a desired future. Certainty recognizes a present fact. When you are certain, you do not need to be positive. You do not need to cover up negative feelings with positive thoughts. You simply know what is true, and you rest in that knowing. Think about something you are absolutely certain of. Perhaps that the sun will rise tomorrow. Perhaps that your name is your name. Do you need to think positively about these things? Do you need to affirm them? Do you need to convince yourself they are true? No. You simply know them. You are certain. And that certainty requires no effort, no maintenance, no positive thinking. This is the state you must cultivate for your desires. Not positive hoping, but certain knowing. So how do you become certain about something that has not yet appeared in your physical reality? How do you know something is yours when your senses tell you it is not? The answer lies in understanding where reality truly exists. Reality does not exist in the physical world. The physical world is merely a reflection, a shadow, an echo of reality. True reality exists in consciousness. When you desire something, and you assume in consciousness that it is already yours, it is yours at the level of reality that matters. It exists in consciousness, and consciousness is the only creative power. Once something exists in consciousness, its appearance in the physical world is inevitable. It is already done. This is how you cultivate certainty. You recognize that your desire is not something you must bring into existence. It already exists in consciousness the moment you assume it. And consciousness always projects itself into physical form. You are not hoping it will manifest. You are not trying to make it happen. You know it is already accomplished in consciousness. And you are simply waiting for the physical world to catch up and reflect what is already true. This knowing, this certainty requires no positive thinking. It requires no effort to maintain. It is simply a fact that you accept like you accept any other fact of your existence. Let me give you a practical example. The woman I mentioned earlier, who was exhausted from positive thinking, I taught her to replace her desperate affirmations with simple statements of certainty. Instead of saying money is flowing to me with desperate hope, I taught her to say calmly and with finality, money is mine. It is already accomplished in consciousness. The physical appearance is just a matter of time. Instead of trying to feel positive about her empty bank account, I taught her to simply know I am financially secure. This is a fact in consciousness. The numbers will update to reflect this fact. No strain, no force, no desperate positivity, just calm, certain knowing. Within 2 months her income had tripled, but more importantly, she was at peace. She was no longer exhausted from trying to be positive. She was resting in certainty. Now let me clarify something important. What I am teaching you is not faith as opposed to positive thinking. Faith and certainty are the same thing. True faith is not hoping something will happen. It is knowing it is already done. It is certainty about the unseen reality of consciousness. The Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Most people read this and think faith is about hoping. But look more carefully. Faith is the substance, the actual reality of what you hope for. Faith is the evidence, the proof of what you cannot yet see. Faith is not hoping your desire will manifest. Faith is knowing your desire already exists in consciousness, which is the only reality that matters. This is certainty. And this is what positive thinking tries to be but fails to achieve. Positive thinking is hoping dressed up as confidence. Certainty is knowing that requires no dress. Now you may be wondering if I am not supposed to cover up negative feelings with positive thoughts. What am I supposed to do with them? The answer is simple. Observe them, acknowledge them, and then choose your state of consciousness regardless of them. When you feel anxious about money, do not try to think positive thoughts to make the anxiety go away. That is resistance. Instead, observe the anxiety. Acknowledge it. I am feeling anxious. Then choose your state. But anxiety is not my reality. My reality is abundance, which already exists in consciousness. I choose to rest in that certainty. When you feel lonely, do not force positive affirmations to cover the loneliness. Acknowledge it. I am feeling lonely right now. Then choose. But loneliness is a temporary feeling, not my permanent state. My reality is that I am loved. This is true in consciousness. And consciousness is what creates my experience. Do you see the difference? You are not denying your feelings. You are not suppressing them. You are not covering them up with false positivity. You are simply recognizing that feelings are temporary reactions to temporary circumstances. But your chosen state of consciousness is your true reality. This is mature spiritual practice. Not the childish game of pretending everything is wonderful, but the powerful choice to identify with your desired state, even while acknowledging current feelings and circumstances. Here is another important truth. Certainty does not require you to feel good all the time. Positive thinking says you must always feel happy, always feel abundant, always feel loving. If you feel bad, you are told you are attracting negativity, and you must immediately shift to positive thoughts. But certainty knows that you can feel however you feel, and it does not change what is true in consciousness. You can feel anxious and still be certain of abundance. You can feel lonely and still be certain of love. You can feel doubt and still be certain of your manifestation. Why? Because certainty is not a feeling. Certainty is a knowing, and knowing is deeper than feeling. You can feel all kinds of ways throughout your day, but underneath every feeling, there can be an unshakable knowing that your desire is already accomplished in consciousness. This knowing does not require constant positive emotion. It simply is. This is tremendously liberating. You no longer have to police your emotions. You no longer have to feel guilty when you have a bad day. You no longer have to force yourself to feel positive when you do not. You simply return to what you know. It is already done in consciousness. That is enough. So if you are not trying to be positive, how do you speak about your desires? How do you think about them? How do you maintain your manifestation without positive thinking? The answer is through calm assertion. Calm assertion is stating what is true in consciousness with the same certainty you would state any other fact. No excitement, no force, no desperate hope. Just simple, calm declaration of what is. Instead of excitedly affirming, I am so abundant, money is flowing to me from everywhere, you calmly assert, I am financially secure. This is established in consciousness. Instead of desperately visualizing your desire for hours, you briefly acknowledge, this is already mine in the dimension where all creation takes place. I claim it as my reality. Instead of constantly checking for signs and trying to stay positive about your manifestation, you simply know it is done. The physical world will reflect this in its own time. Notice the energy difference. Positive thinking is high energy, effortful, often desperate. Certainty is calm, settled, at rest. Which energy do you think is more powerful? Which energy suggests someone who truly has what they desire? If you truly owned a mansion, would you be excitedly affirming, I have a mansion, all day long? No. You would simply live in the mansion. You would take it for granted as a normal part of your life. This is the energy of certainty. This is what you should be instead of positive. Let me give you the ultimate distinction between positive thinking and certainty. Positive thinking tries to create reality. Certainty knows reality is already created in consciousness. Positive thinking is work, certainty is rest. Positive thinking looks to the future. Certainty recognizes the eternal now where all things already are. Positive thinking needs constant maintenance. Certainty is self-sustaining. Positive thinking fears negativity. Certainty is unmoved by temporary feelings and circumstances. Positive thinking is exhausting. Certainty is peaceful. So tonight I want you to make a commitment. Stop trying to be positive. Stop forcing positive thoughts. Stop covering up real feelings with fake positivity. Instead, cultivate certainty. Know that what you desire already exists in consciousness. Know that consciousness is the only creative power. Know that once something exists in consciousness, its physical manifestation is inevitable. Rest in this knowing. Return to this knowing. Live from this knowing. This is not positive thinking. This is something far more powerful. This is the certainty that moves mountains, that parts seas, that manifests the impossible. Be certain, be unshakable, be at rest in the knowledge that it is already done, and watch as your world transforms, not through the exhausting effort of positive thinking, but through the calm, certain knowing of one who understands where reality truly exists and how it truly operates. Stop being positive and be certain instead. Thank you, and good evening. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and I'll see you in the next video.
You already won. Not tomorrow, not someday. The victory is already yours. And now, you are simply approaching the moment when you will see it. Most people stop too soon, not because they failed, but because they doubted during the quiet interval between decision and appearance. Yet this pause is not emptiness. It is preparation. It is the space where what is unseen gathers form. The moment you accepted your desire as fulfilled within, the outcome was sealed. Life does not debate that decision. It follows it. Every circumstance, every encounter, every shift you notice or don't notice is quietly aligning itself with the state you have already occupied. You may wonder why nothing seems different yet, but understand this: change always happens inward first. The outer world is the last to receive the message. When the mirror hasn't changed, it doesn't mean your face hasn't. It only means the reflection is catching up. This is why you must keep going, not with strain, not with force, but with calm certainty. Persistence is not repetition of words. It is loyalty to a feeling. It is remaining faithful to the knowing that this is done even when the senses offer no evidence. Especially then, do not argue with appearances. They are outdated information. What you are seeing now was shaped by former assumptions, not your present decision. Your present state is already creating something new, and it cannot fail to express itself. You are not hoping anymore. You are not wishing anymore. You are remembering. Remember who you are when you feel at peace about your desire. Remember the quiet confidence that comes when you no longer chase, but allow. That feeling is the sign. That feeling is the proof. The world must follow what you consistently assume to be true. It has no choice. So keep going, not because you're trying to win, but because you already have. And very soon, what you know inwardly will stand before you outwardly, undeniable, solid, and real. You already won. Now you'll see it. The victory is already decided, not in some distant future, not in a world outside of you, but within the quiet depth of your own awareness. What you seek was settled the moment you accepted it as real inside yourself. Long before circumstances move, before evidence appears, before anyone else can see a change, the decision is made inwardly. Life does not begin with outer action. It begins with inner agreement. When you consent internally to an outcome, you initiate a process that cannot be reversed, because the source has already spoken. Most people misunderstand victory because they wait for signs. They believe success arrives only when the senses confirm it. But the deeper truth is that the senses are followers, not leaders. They echo decisions that were already finalized within. The moment you stop asking whether it will happen and begin knowing that it has happened, the struggle ends. That knowing is not loud or dramatic. It is calm, settled, and certain. It feels natural, almost ordinary. And that is how you know it is real. What you seek does not require effort to be created, only acceptance to be expressed. The inner decision carries more power than any external action because it speaks the language life understands. Once you have claimed something inwardly, the world reorganizes itself around that claim. People change, opportunities appear, and events align in ways you could never plan logically. This is not coincidence. It is the natural response of reality to an inner conclusion already reached. You may still experience moments of doubt, not because the victory is uncertain, but because the mind is adjusting to a new state. Old habits of thinking may question what has already been settled. This does not undo the decision unless you fully withdraw your inner consent. A passing thought cannot cancel a deep acceptance. The seed has already been planted, and even when the ground looks unchanged, growth is taking place below the surface. The delay you perceive is not resistance, it is incubation. Everything moves according to its own rhythm, and the unseen always precedes the seen. When you remain inwardly aligned with the outcome, you allow the process to unfold without interference. Forcing, worrying, or constantly checking only pulls attention back to the old state. Peace, on the other hand, keeps you anchored in the truth that it is already done. To understand this is to rest. You no longer chase, persuade, or prove. You simply live from the assumption that what you desire is yours. From that place, action becomes effortless and timing becomes precise. The victory does not arrive suddenly, it reveals itself naturally, as something that was always meant to be. And when it does, you will recognize it not as a miracle, but as a confirmation of what you already knew within. Persistence is not about force, repetition, or struggle. It is about remaining loyal to an inner knowing, regardless of what the outer world appears to say. Continuance in this quiet certainty is what allows reality to reveal itself. The outer world is fluid and responsive, but it moves according to inner direction. When you persist inwardly, you are not trying to make something happen. You are allowing what is already set in motion to complete its journey into form. Inner knowing is subtle. It is not the excitement of hope or the urgency of desire. It is the calm awareness that something is settled. Persistence means you return to that awareness again and again, especially when appearances suggest otherwise. The world may look unchanged, situations may seem delayed, and results may appear distant, but these are not indicators of failure. They are simply the echo of previous states, still playing out. Persistence keeps you anchored in the present assumption, rather than reacting to outdated reflections. Most people abandon their inner position too quickly. They hold the knowing for a moment, then surrender it to doubt when they see no immediate confirmation. Yet reality cannot instantly rearrange itself. It must move through people, circumstances, and timing that are beyond conscious planning. Persistence allows these unseen adjustments to occur without interruption. Every time you return to the inner conviction, you reinforce the direction life is already taking. This continuance is not stressful. True persistence feels more like relaxation than effort. It is choosing again and again not to contradict yourself internally. You stop asking, is it working? Because that question belongs to uncertainty. Instead, you live as someone who already knows. This knowing shapes your reactions, your expectations, and even your silence. You begin to respond to life from a different level, and life responds in kind. Outer proof does not come as a reward for effort. It comes as a reflection of consistency. The world mirrors what you sustain inwardly, not what you occasionally affirm. When your inner state remains steady, reality has no option but to conform. It must express what is most consistently assumed. This is why persistence is more powerful than intensity. A calm, unwavering assumption carries more creative force than emotional highs followed by doubt. As you persist, something shifts within you before anything shifts around you. The need for reassurance fades. you feel less urgency and more peace. This inner stability is the sign that alignment is complete. From that place, outer proof arrives naturally, often unexpectedly, because the work was already done within. When the manifestation appears, it feels familiar, almost inevitable. You recognize it as the outer echo of an inner truth you refused to abandon. Persistence did not create it, persistence revealed it. Seeing does not lead belief, belief leads seeing. This is one of the most misunderstood truths of creation. Most people wait for visible confirmation before allowing themselves to feel certain, safe, or fulfilled. They tell themselves they will believe once the evidence appears, yet the outer world can only display what has already been accepted inwardly. To reverse this order is to remain stuck, because appearances are not causes, they are results. Being comes first. What you consistently assume yourself to be, to have, or to experience forms the foundation from which all seeing emerges. When you change your state of being, you change the lens through which life is perceived, and that new perception eventually solidifies into physical experience. Belief is not pretending or imagining without conviction. It is an inner decision about what is true now, regardless of what the senses report. When you believe first, you step into a new identity. You no longer relate to life as someone hoping for change, but as someone expecting alignment. This shift may feel subtle, but it is profound. Your reactions soften, your choices adjust naturally, and your attention moves toward possibilities instead of limitations. You are not forcing positivity, you are embodying a state. From that state, seeing becomes inevitable. Waiting to see before believing keeps you bound to old conditions. It hands authority to circumstances and allows the past to dictate the future. Believing before seeing, on the other hand, breaks this cycle. It places creative power back within you. You stop being a reactor to life and become a silent director. The world, in response, begins to rearrange itself to match the inner position you occupy. This does not mean ignoring reality or denying challenges. It means understanding their temporary nature. What you see now reflects former beliefs, not current ones. When you believe in advance, you are planting a new cause. The delay between belief and sight is not failure, it is transition. During this time, the inner state must remain intact so it can fully express itself outwardly. Being is not something you do occasionally, it is something you live from. You move through your day with an inner sense of completion rather than anticipation. You feel aligned instead of anxious. This inner consistency is what brings clarity to the outer world. Gradually, what once felt like imagination begins to feel natural, and what felt natural begins to appear. When seeing finally follows being, it feels almost secondary. The outer confirmation is satisfying but not surprising. You recognize it as the visible version of a truth you already accepted. This is why belief must come first. The world does not convince you, it confirms you. And once you understand this order, you no longer wait for permission to believe. You decide, and then you see. Everything you experience is shaped not by chance, not by effort alone, but by what you consistently accept as true within yourself. Inner assumption is the quiet agreement you hold about who you are, what is possible for you, and how life responds to you. This agreement operates whether you are aware of it or not. Life does not question your assumptions, it simply reflects them. The world rearranges itself not in response to your wishes, but in response to your accepted inner truth. An assumption is more powerful than a desire because it does not ask, it declares. Desire says, I want, while assumption says, this is. When something is assumed, the mind stops searching for evidence and begins expecting alignment. That expectation influences perception, behavior, and opportunity in subtle but precise ways. You notice different things, you respond differently, and people respond differently to you. These shifts may appear ordinary, but together they form the pathway through which reality reorganizes itself. Most people try to change their world by struggling with conditions, unaware that conditions are effects, not causes. When you fight appearances, you reinforce them. When you accept a new inner position, appearances gradually lose authority. Life begins to echo your inner stance. Doors open without force, resistance dissolves without argument, and situations resolve themselves without struggle. This is not because the world suddenly becomes generous, but because it is aligning with the assumption you now hold. Inner assumption works through consistency. What you accept occasionally has little impact. What you accept habitually becomes law. This is why fleeting affirmations or emotional highs rarely produce lasting change. It is the steady, calm acceptance that reshapes experience. When your inner dialogue, expectations, and emotional tone align with a chosen truth, life must conform. It cannot do otherwise. The world may seem unchanged. This is not a contradiction, it is a delay. Existing conditions were formed by earlier assumptions and must play out. But as you remain faithful to the new inner truth, the old structures weaken. New patterns begin to form. Encounters feel timed, opportunities feel natural, and outcomes feel inevitable. The rearrangement happens quietly, often unnoticed until the result is complete. You do not need to control how this happens. Life handles the details. Your only responsibility is to remain inwardly aligned with what you have accepted as true. When doubt arises, it is not a command to retreat, but an invitation to reaffirm. Each return to the assumption strengthens its hold. The outer world reflects back what you have long known inwardly. When this happens, it feels less like success and more like recognition. You are not surprised, you are validated. Life has rearranged itself not to reward you, but to mirror you. And once you understand this, you realize that changing your world is not about effort, it is about agreement. Agreement. Delay is often misunderstood as failure, yet it is nothing more than the natural interval between inner decision and outer expression. When the senses report silence, it does not mean nothing is happening. It means the movement has shifted to a level beyond immediate perception. The unseen is always active first. Every meaningful change begins where the eyes cannot see and the hands cannot touch. To mistake this quiet phase for denial is to misjudge the process entirely. The senses are limited reporters. They can only register what has already taken form, not what is currently forming. When you have made an inner shift, when you have accepted a new truth about yourself or your life, the outer world does not instantly mirror it. Reality must reorganize itself through countless unseen adjustments. People's attitudes change, circumstances reposition, and pathways open in ways that cannot be tracked linearly. This reorganization requires time, not because it is difficult, but because it is precise. Delay tests loyalty to the inner decision. It reveals whether belief is rooted in knowing or dependent on evidence. If you retreat the moment nothing appears, you withdraw the very agreement that allowed movement to begin. But when you remain inwardly steady during silence, you allow the unseen to complete its work. Patience in this sense is not passive waiting. It is active trust in a process already underway. Many abandon their inner position just before the shift becomes visible. They assume nothing is happening because nothing is seen. Yet the greatest transformations often occur in stillness. Just as roots grow in darkness before a tree appears above ground, reality arranges itself out of sight before revealing itself in form. The silence is not empty, it is full of motion. When you understand that delay is not denial, urgency dissolves. You stop checking for signs and stop measuring progress. This inner relaxation is not indifference, it is confidence. It signals alignment. From this state, you no longer interfere with the process by doubting, forcing, or overthinking. You allow life to deliver in its own way at the right moment. The unseen responds to consistency, not impatience. Each time you return to the assumption that it is done, you strengthen the pathway through which it will appear. Doubt may still arise, but it does not have to be believed. A thought does not undo a decision unless you give it authority. The silence breaks. What seemed delayed arrives naturally, often suddenly, and always clearly. When it does, you realize the waiting was never empty time. It was preparation. The unseen was moving all along, arranging, aligning, and perfecting. And the moment you see the result, you understand that denial never existed, only timing, purpose, and quiet movement beneath the surface. To keep going without questioning is not an act of blind hope, but an expression of deep inner trust. It is the decision to remain faithful to what you have accepted as true, even when the mind looks for reasons to doubt. Questioning often feels intelligent and cautious, yet it quietly weakens faith by dividing attention. Calm persistence, on the other hand, unifies the inner state. It allows the work that has already begun to reach its natural completion. Faith is not proven through emotional intensity or constant affirmation. It is revealed through steadiness. When you no longer feel the urge to analyze, explain, or repeatedly check for results, you are demonstrating faith in its purest form. This calm persistence signals certainty. It says, without words, that the outcome is settled. Life responds to this signal with precision because it reflects what is most consistently held within. Questioning interrupts alignment. Each time you ask whether it will happen, you momentarily step out of the state where it already has. This does not mean you must control every thought, but it does mean you choose where to return. Calm persistence is the practice of gently bringing yourself back to inner certainty whenever the mind wanders. There is no struggle in this return, only remembrance. Keeping going does not mean forcing action or maintaining constant focus. It means living your life from the assumption that the matter is resolved. You move forward without urgency. You make decisions without fear. You respond to situations from confidence rather than anticipation. This natural way of being is what allows faith to do its work without resistance. Many people stop just before completion, not because they lack belief, but because they grow tired of not seeing immediate proof. Yet, completion does not require effort from you, it requires permission. Calm persistence gives that permission by refusing to withdraw belief. It allows the unseen process to unfold without interference. There is power in not checking. There is strength in not demanding reassurance. When you remain inwardly settled, the need for external confirmation fades. This inner peace is not ignorance, it is alignment. It indicates that the inner and outer are already moving toward agreement. Faith completes the work because it removes opposition. When you stop questioning, you stop resisting. The path clears, timing aligns, and results appear naturally. Often they arrive when you are least concerned with them, because concern was never the creative force, faith was. To keep going without questioning is to trust the intelligence of life itself. You do not need to know how it will happen or when it will unfold. Your role is simpler and more powerful. Remain loyal to what you have decided within. When you do, the outcome cannot remain unfinished. Calm persistence carries it forward, and faith brings it home. In conclusion, the message is simple, yet profound. Everything begins within. The victory is already decided. Persistence reveals reality. Belief precedes sight. Inner assumptions shape the world. Delay is never denial, and calm, unwavering faith completes the work. When you stop fighting appearances and remain loyal to your inner knowing, life naturally rearranges itself to confirm what you have accepted as true. You are not waiting for life to change. You are allowing it to catch up to who you have already become. Keep going without questioning. Remain steady in your inner certainty and trust the unseen movement that is always working in your favor. What you know inwardly. Thank you for listening.
Good evening, my dear friends. Tonight I want to talk to you about something that will completely change the way you see yourself and your life. I want to talk to you about the art of dreaming while awake. Now, when I say dream, I don't mean daydreaming. I don't mean fantasizing. I don't mean letting your mind wander aimlessly while you wait for life to happen to you. No, I mean something far more powerful, far more deliberate, far more creative than that. I mean the conscious use of your imagination to experience right now in this moment what you desire to experience in your world. You see, most people think there's a difference between their sleeping dreams and their waking life. They think the dream is unreal and the waking world is real. But I'm telling you tonight, there is no difference. None whatsoever. When you sleep at night and dream, where does that dream take place? In your mind, in your consciousness, in your imagination. And when you wake up in the morning and experience this world, where does this experience take place? In the same place, in your mind, in your consciousness, in your imagination. The only difference between your sleeping dream and your waking dream is that in your sleeping dream, you know you're dreaming at least once you wake up. But in your waking dream, you've forgotten that you're dreaming. You think this world is happening to you, that it's separate from you, that it's more real than your imagination. But it's not. This waking world is just as much a dream as the one you had last night. The only difference is that this is a shared dream, a collective dream, and you've been dreaming it for so long that you've convinced yourself it's solid, permanent, unchangeable. But I'm here to tell you, you can dream a new dream right now, while awake. And that new dream, if you persist in it, will become your waking reality. This is not theory, this is not philosophy. This is the mechanics of creation. You are dreaming your life into being every single moment. The question is, are you dreaming consciously or unconsciously? Are you dreaming deliberately or by default? Most people dream by default. They wake up in the morning, look at their circumstances, and their imagination simply replays yesterday. They imagine more of what they already have. They expect more of what they've already experienced. And so their waking dream continues in the same pattern, the same groove, the same limitations. But you don't have to do that. You can dream a different dream. You can use your imagination right now while fully awake to experience something entirely new. Let me tell you what I mean. When you go to sleep at night and you dream, you don't question the reality of that dream while you're in it, do you? If you dream you're walking on a beach, you feel the sand beneath your feet. If you dream you're talking to a friend, you hear their voice. If you dream you're afraid, your heart races, the dream feels completely real while you're experiencing it. And that's because in that moment it is real, it's real in consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality there is. Now, what if you could do that while awake? What if you could close your eyes right now, while sitting in your chair, and imagine yourself into a completely different state? What if you could feel yourself in the wish fulfilled, so vividly, so naturally that it becomes real to you in consciousness? That's what I mean by dreaming while awake. It's the deliberate use of your imagination to enter into the feeling of your desire being already fulfilled. Not thinking about it, not wishing for it, but actually experiencing it in imagination as though it were happening now. I remember a time when I was struggling. I had a vision of where I wanted to be, who I wanted to become, but my circumstances seemed to contradict that vision at every turn. I could have looked at my circumstances and said, "This is reality. I must accept this. I must be realistic." But instead I chose to dream while awake. Every day I would sit quietly and imagine myself living the life I desired. I didn't imagine it as something in the future. I imagined it now. I felt myself already there. I heard the congratulations of friends. I felt the satisfaction of achievement. I experienced, in my imagination, the reality I desired. And I persisted in that dream, day after day, night after night. And slowly, sometimes it seemed too slowly, the outer world began to conform to my inner dream. Opportunities appeared. Circumstances shifted. People came into my life. And before long I was living the very reality I had been dreaming while awake. Was it magic? Was it coincidence? No, it was law. It was the law of consciousness. The law that says whatever you are conscious of, whatever you experience in imagination, must eventually manifest in your world. You see, your imagination is not separate from reality. Your imagination is the creative force that shapes reality. When you imagine something vividly, when you feel it real, you are not pretending. You are actually creating. You are impressing upon consciousness the pattern that must later appear in your world. Most people use their imagination unconsciously. They imagine the worst. They replay their fears. They rehearse their problems. And then they wonder why their life is filled with more of what they don't want. But you can change that. You can take control of your imagination. You can decide what you will dream while awake. There was a woman I knew who was desperate to change her living situation. She was in a small, cramped apartment that she hated. Every day she would complain about it. She would look around at those walls and feel trapped. She would imagine herself stuck there forever. And I said to her, "Stop dreaming that dream. Dream a different dream. Right now, while you're awake, close your eyes and imagine yourself in the home you desire. Walk through the rooms. Feel the space. Look out the windows. Make it so real in your imagination that you can't tell the difference between that and this." She was skeptical. She said, "But that's just pretending. That's not real." And I said, "What do you think this is?" I gestured to the apartment around us. "This is also imagination. This is also a dream. The only difference is that you've been dreaming this dream for so long that you've accepted it as fixed. But if you will dream a new dream and persist in it, this too will fade and the new will appear." She decided to try it. Every night before sleep, and often during the day, she would close her eyes and dream while awake. She would imagine herself in a beautiful, spacious home. She would feel the joy of it. She would experience the relief of having what she desired. And within a few months, I kid you not, an opportunity came that she never could have predicted. A relative offered her a place. The rent was affordable. It was everything she had imagined. Some would call it luck, but I call it the natural result of dreaming while awake. Now, let me be very clear about what I mean by this. When I say dream while awake, I don't mean to escape from your life. I don't mean to live in fantasy while ignoring your responsibilities. I mean to use your imagination as the creative tool it was designed to be. Your imagination is not for entertainment. It's not for passing the time. It's for creation. It's for molding and shaping the reality you wish to experience. Every great thing that has ever been accomplished in this world began as someone's waking dream. The inventor dreams of his invention before it exists. The artist dreams of her painting before she touches brush to canvas. The musician dreams of the symphony before a single note is played. They all dream while awake. They see in their imagination what does not yet exist in the outer world. And then through the mysterious law of consciousness, that inner dream becomes outer reality. You have the same power. You are using it right now, whether you know it or not. The question is, what are you dreaming? What are you imagining? What are you feeling real in consciousness? Because I promise you, whatever you are dreaming while awake, that is what will appear in your world. If you dream poverty, you will see poverty. If you dream illness, you will experience illness. If you dream loneliness, you will be lonely. Not because the world is doing this to you, but because you are dreaming it into being. But if you will discipline your imagination, if you will take control of what you allow yourself to experience in consciousness, you can dream anything, absolutely anything. You want health? Dream it. Feel yourself healthy. Experience in imagination the vitality and energy of perfect health. Don't wait for the symptoms to disappear before you imagine health. Dream health now while awake and persist in that dream. You want love? Dream it. Imagine yourself loved. Feel the warmth of companionship. Experience the joy of mutual affection. Don't wait for the person to appear before you feel loved. Dream love now and the person must come. You want success? Dream it. See yourself successful. Feel the satisfaction of achievement. Experience the respect and admiration you desire. Don't wait for the accomplishment before you feel successful. Dream success now, and the accomplishment must follow. This is the secret. This is what I've been trying to tell you in 100 different ways. You are the dreamer, dreaming this life into being, and you can change the dream anytime you choose, simply by changing what you imagine, what you feel, what you experience in consciousness. But here's the key. You must dream while awake, not just once, not just when you feel like it, but persistently, faithfully, until the dream becomes so real to you that you no longer distinguish between the inner dream and the outer reality. When you reach that point, when your waking dream feels just as real as your current circumstances, that's when the shift happens. That's when the outer world must conform. It has no choice. Consciousness is the only reality, and all things must bow to consciousness. I've seen this happen countless times. I've lived it myself. And I'm telling you, as someone who has tested this law over and over again, it works. It always works. If you will dream while awake and persist in that dream, it must become your reality. The mystics understood this. They spoke of waking sleep and sleeping wakefulness. They knew that most people are asleep while they think they're awake, and that the truly awakened person is the one who consciously dreams their world into being. Scripture tells us to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How do you renew your mind? By dreaming a new dream, by imagining a new reality, by experiencing in consciousness something different than what your senses report. This is not denial. This is not avoidance. This is creation. This is the conscious use of the only creative power you have, your imagination. So tonight I want you to try something. Before you go to sleep, I want you to dream while awake. Close your eyes, relax your body, and imagine yourself living the life you desire. Don't imagine it in the future. Imagine it now. Make it vivid. Make it real. Engage all your senses. Where are you? Who is with you? What do you see around you? How do you feel? What are people saying to you? Let yourself experience it fully, as though it were happening in this very moment. And then carry that dream with you. Return to it throughout your day. Remind yourself of it. Let it become more real to you than your current circumstances. Because I promise you, if you will persist in this dream, if you will make it your dwelling place in consciousness, it must manifest. The outer world must conform to the inner dream. It cannot do otherwise. You are the dreamer. You've always been the dreamer. The only question is, what will you dream? Will you continue to dream the same old dream? The dream of limitation and lack? Or will you dare to dream something new? Something wonderful, something that makes your heart sing? The choice is yours. But I'm telling you, you are already dreaming. You're dreaming right now. This moment is your dream made visible. So dream consciously, dream deliberately, dream beautifully, dream while awake, and watch as your waking world transforms to match the dream you've been dreaming in consciousness. Thank you and good evening. Remember, the power to transform your life lies within your own wonderful human imagination. Dare to assume you are what you want to be, and remain faithful to that assumption. This is Best of Lectures. I will see you in the next video.
There comes a moment just before the dawn when the night feels its darkest. It is the very same in your life. When everything around you seems to contradict your vision, when the outer world insists you have failed, that is the signal you are closer than ever. The pressure you feel is not the sign of defeat, but the labor pains of your dream being born. Everything you desire is already finished within you. The vision you hold, the scene you play in the quiet of your mind, is not imagination in the weak sense of fantasy. It is reality clothed in its first form. What you dare to accept inwardly will harden into fact outwardly. The invisible becomes visible, but only to the one who persists. So I tell you, do not stop when the evidence of the senses shouts against you. The world of appearances is nothing more than a shadow. It bends to the persistence of your inner stance. Keep going. Stand firm in the assumption of your fulfilled desire. The world will conform. It has no choice. Delay is never denial. If it seems long, it is only the process of unseen arrangements. The outer picture is catching up to the inner decree. Trust it. To abandon your vision now would be like walking away from a harvest when the fruit has ripened but not yet been placed in your hands. Keep resting in the end. Feel now the joy of completion. Let your heart taste the satisfaction of already having. For when you live as though it is done, you summon the power that brings it to pass. The world reflects not your words, but your state. Remain faithful to the state of the wish fulfilled, and all else will bow before it. Remember this: faith is nothing more than loyalty to your unseen vision. To believe in the facts of the senses is easy. Anyone can do that. But to remain unmoved in the unseen, to hold to your inner reality, though all else denies it, that is power. And that power guarantees manifestation. So I say to you now, keep going. You are so close. Do not measure by appearances. Measure by your inner knowing. The seed you planted is alive, and it is growing. Soon the harvest will break forth into your world, and you will see with your eyes what you already embraced within. Stand firm, for the victory is already yours. Imagination is the seed of reality, for everything you have ever experienced in the outer world first began as an unseen thought, a quiet picture within the mind, a fleeting desire that took root in consciousness. Nothing exists in your world that was not first imagined. The clothes you wear, the home you live in, the devices you hold in your hands, all of them were once invisible ideas resting in the imagination of someone who dared to believe in their unseen vision. What you see within is already forming without, because imagination is not a fantasy. It is creation's first stage, the womb in which your reality gestates. When you close your eyes and dare to feel the reality of what you desire, you are planting a seed in the fertile ground of consciousness. That seed may not appear instantly in your physical environment, but the process begins the very moment you accept it as real. Just as a farmer trusts that the seed beneath the soil is growing even when he cannot see it, so too must you trust that your imaginal act is alive and unfolding. The outer world is simply the harvest of inner seeds planted long ago, and what you persist in imagining will inevitably bloom into fact. Imagination carries a creative law that cannot fail. It moves with precision and order, arranging people, circumstances, and events to reflect the image you hold within. Often, you may not perceive the subtle shifts at first, for they happen in silence, behind the veil of appearances. Yet the invisible roots are spreading, the unseen connections are forming, until suddenly, what you once entertained only in thought becomes undeniable in your world. This is why your inner vision is more important than your outer circumstances, for circumstances are only effects, while imagination is the cause. The power lies not in waiting for reality to change before you believe, but in believing so completely that reality is compelled to obey. The world has no choice but to yield to the sustained direction of your inner life. If you persist in imagining yourself successful, loved, or free, the world must eventually mirror that vision. If you continue to entertain fear, doubt, or lack, the world faithfully reflects those as well. It is impartial, like soil receiving a seed. The harvest depends entirely on what is planted. Therefore, guard your imagination with reverence. Do not dismiss your inner pictures as idle daydreams, for they are the blueprint of tomorrow's experiences. Train yourself to return again and again to the vision of your fulfilled desire. Enter the scene, live within it, and feel the reality of it as though it were already yours. By doing so, you are not merely hoping, you are creating. The unseen is the real, and the seen is but its shadow. Every great achievement, every shift of destiny, every transformation of life begins in the quiet sanctuary of imagination. What you see within is already forming without, and if you remain faithful to it, the day will come when you will stand in the midst of the very thing you once held only in the secret place of your mind. The moment of greatest resistance is not a sign of failure, but a divine signal that your manifestation is closer than you realize. Just as the darkest part of the night appears just before the dawn, so too does the heaviest resistance often rise just before your vision breaks through into the world of facts. This resistance may appear as doubt, fear, frustration, or even external obstacles that seem impossible to overcome. Yet these are not barriers meant to stop you. They are simply the final contractions before birth, the last attempt of the old state to hold on before it dissolves and gives way to the new. When you hold a vision within yourself, you are calling into being a new reality, a new state of existence. The old state, which has been dominant for so long, does not easily vanish without effort. It will fight for its survival, showing you the loudest and most convincing appearances to persuade you to abandon your new assumption. This is why resistance feels so real and so powerful. But it is precisely because the new state is already forming that the old is forced to rear its head one last time. If you recognize this moment for what it truly is, you will not retreat. Instead, you will stand firm in the assurance that what you seek is already yours. Think of a seed sprouting beneath the soil. For days, nothing is seen, only silence and stillness. But just before the breakthrough, the pressure is at its highest. The soil resists, the surface seems unyielding, and yet the sprout pushes through and finds the light. The resistance of the soil was never the end, but rather the final step in the process of emergence. In the same way, the resistance you feel in life is evidence that the unseen reality you have nurtured in imagination is pressing against the surface of your world, ready to reveal itself. This is why it is so important to persist in your vision, regardless of appearances. If you yield in the moment of greatest resistance, you are like the farmer who abandons his crop the day before harvest. You must trust the law, knowing that the outer world cannot resist the sustained inner state. It may appear stubborn, but appearances are only echoes, and echoes always fade when the sound ceases. The resistance is only the echo of the old belief, soon to be replaced by the living reality of your new assumption. So when you feel the strongest doubt, when the facts scream louder than ever, remind yourself, this is the sign that manifestation is near. Do not look for confirmation outside, rest in the conviction inside. Stand firm in your assumption, and the resistance will collapse, revealing the very fulfillment you have long held within. The moment of greatest resistance is not your enemy, it is your proof. It means you are on the threshold of receiving what you have already claimed in the unseen. Your inner state is the true cause of everything you experience, for the outer world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting what you have accepted within yourself. It may appear as though circumstances, people, or chance events shape your life, but in truth, they are only effects. The cause lies deeper in the invisible realm of consciousness. Every thought you dwell upon, every emotion you persistently feel, every assumption you refuse to let go of, they shape the state in which you live, and that state generates the conditions of your world. To attempt to change the outer without first altering the inner is like trying to rearrange the reflection in a mirror without touching the face it reflects. True transformation begins within. When you understand this principle, you stop blaming circumstances and begin taking responsibility for your inner life. The world cannot show you anything you have not first impressed upon yourself. If you live in the state of fear, lack, or failure, you will encounter evidence that seems to confirm those states. If you live in the state of abundance, love, and fulfillment, your world will bend itself to express those realities. This is why persistence is so vital. The outer world often lags behind the inner shift, continuing for a time to echo the old state, even after you have assumed a new one. If you abandon your inner conviction too soon, you simply fall back into the old state, and the reflection continues unchanged. But when you persist, when you hold to the new state regardless of appearances, you give it the strength to harden into fact. The world has no choice but to yield to the inner cause, though it may take time for all the invisible threads to align. Imagine living in the inner state of already being what you desire. Feel the satisfaction, the relief, the joy of fulfillment now. In imagination, if you remain faithful to that state, the outer world will eventually conform, for it is compelled to follow the pattern within. Do not be deceived by temporary appearances. They are only shadows, echoes of the old assumptions that once governed you. Shadows may linger for a while, but they have no power of their own. The living power is your present state of being, and this state is entirely in your control. Choose it deliberately, return to it often. Live in it until it feels natural, until it is no longer an effort, but your dwelling place. At that point, the outer reflection must shift for the mirror can only display what you are. So I urge you, persist in the inner vision. Do not waver. Do not seek validation from the outer world before you believe. Believe first within, and the facts will follow. Your inner state is the cause, and the world will conform in time. Stand firm, knowing that what you claim innerly is already real, and that soon, inevitably, it will appear without as the undeniable proof of your inner faithfulness. Delay is not denial, for what you have imagined and accepted within yourself is already yours. The time that seems to pass between your inner acceptance and its outward appearance is not a void, nor is it rejection. It is the sacred process of unseen alignment. Life is weaving together the threads of circumstance, people, and events in ways you cannot yet see. Just as a seed planted in the soil requires its season of growth before the fruit appears, so too does your desire unfold in its perfect time. To mistake delay for denial is to uproot the seed before it has a chance to bloom. When you understand this law, you cease to be impatient with appearances. You realize that every moment after your imaginal act is part of the unfolding. The outer world must reshape itself to mirror the new state you have assumed within, and that reshaping often involves movements you cannot detect. Someone may be moved to make a decision. A door may need to open. A connection may have to form. These alignments are happening in the unseen, orchestrated by the power that responds faithfully to your inner stance. Delay, therefore, is not the absence of manifestation, but the very proof that it is on its way. Consider the farmer who plants his crop. He does not stare at the soil demanding instant fruit. He trusts the invisible process at work beneath the ground. He waters, he waits, he continues in faith, knowing that the unseen roots are developing long before the harvest is visible. If he were to dig up the seed each day to check its progress, he would sabotage the very process he depends on. In the same way, you must trust your imaginal seed. It is alive, it is growing, and the delay is only the orderly unfolding of its expression. And impatience and doubt are temptations that arise when the senses show no evidence. The mind whispers, "It isn't working," or "maybe it's not meant for me." But these are only shadows of the old belief trying to regain ground. If you surrender to them, you step out of the state of fulfillment and back into the state of lack. The outer world then reflects that shift and the process stalls. But if you remain faithful, unmoved by appearances, the manifestation must come. The law does not fail. Delay is a teacher, inviting you to deepen your trust, to anchor yourself more firmly in the unseen reality than in the shifting facts of the visible. It reminds you that life is not chaotic but ordered. It is aligning in ways beyond your immediate comprehension, and your only task is to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to rest in the end, knowing that what you have imagined is already accomplished, is to allow the process to complete itself without interference. So when delay arises, welcome it as part of the unfolding. See it not as punishment, but as preparation. The unseen is moving, and the outer must catch up. Denial does not exist in this law, only delay. And even that delay is nothing more than divine alignment in progress. Hold fast, for what you have claimed within is certain to reveal itself without. And when it does, you will see that the timing was perfect all along. To rest in the end is to step beyond striving and enter the stillness of already being. It is to seize the struggle of trying to make something happen and instead live from the assurance that it has already been accomplished within you. When you rest in the end, You no longer plead, beg, or wait anxiously. You dwell in the inner satisfaction of fulfillment. You let the feeling of completion wrap around you until it becomes your natural state. In that stillness, the power of creation is released, and the outer world is compelled to mirror your inner rest. The world is shaped not by effort but by assumption. Striving implies that your desire is separate from you, distant and difficult. But when you assume the end, when you let yourself feel the joy, the relief, the gratitude of already having, you collapse the distance between desire and fulfillment. You become the one who already possesses what you once longed for. From that state, the law works effortlessly because it only reflects the reality you embody. To rest in the end is not laziness. It is the highest form of trust. It is the refusal to live in lack and the courage to claim completion now. Think of how a child falls asleep after a long day of excitement. They do not question whether tomorrow will arrive. They simply surrender, knowing the sun will rise. In the same way, when you rest in the end, you surrender all worry and doubt, knowing that the unseen reality is already secured. You allow yourself to be carried by the feeling of it is done. That rest is not passive, it is the seedbed of manifestation. For the world always conforms to the state in which you live, and the state of fulfilled desire calls forth its own evidence. The restless mind seeks proof before it can believe. It waits for outer confirmation to feel inner relief. But to dwell in the end is to reverse this order. You give yourself the relief first, and the proof follows. You let yourself feel the embrace of love before the partner arrives, the freedom of abundance before the money appears, the thrill of success before the achievement is visible. By doing so, you generate the cause, and the effect must come. The facts of life bend to the power of your inner conviction. Resting in the end is also freedom from time. You no longer ask, when will it come? For you have already received it within. In imagination, you are there. And if you are there in imagination, the world will in time deliver the corresponding scene. This is why rest is so powerful. It removes the desperation of waiting and replaces it with the quiet certainty of knowing. So dwell in the end as though you have already arrived. Let your heart celebrate the completion now. Walk as the one who already has, speak as the one who already is, and think as the one who already knows. This is not pretense, it is truth. For what you claim inwardly is the only reality, and when you rest in it faithfully, the outer world must eventually rise to meet it. The journey is over when you rest in the end, for you are no longer seeking, you are being, and being is the key to all creation. Faith is loyalty to the unseen vision, not to the visible facts. To live by faith is to give your allegiance to the inner picture, the imaginal act, the reality you have claimed within yourself, even when everything in the outer world denies it. Facts are temporary. They are the shadows cast by yesterday's beliefs and assumptions. Vision is eternal, for it springs from the creative core of consciousness. When you choose to remain loyal to the unseen, you are affirming that your inner world is the true cause and the outer world is only its reflection. Faith does not demand evidence, it creates it. Most people live in bondage to the visible. They allow their moods, decisions, and hopes to rise and fall with appearances. If circumstances look favorable, they feel confident. If circumstances look bleak, they despair. But faith is the refusal to bow to appearances. It is the unwavering commitment to what cannot yet be seen by the senses, but which is known within. Faith says, "Though I see lack, I know abundance is mine. Though I see loneliness, I know love surrounds me. Though I see obstacles, I know the way is already made." Faith anchors you in the unseen reality until the facts of life rearrange themselves to mirror it. This loyalty is not always easy, for the visible world will often shout louder than your quiet inner vision. You may be tempted to abandon what you have imagined, because the evidence has not yet appeared. But to abandon the unseen is to cut yourself off from the very cause of transformation. The seed cannot bloom if you stop watering it. Faith is the steady hand that continues to water, continues to believe, continues to nurture the invisible until it appears in form. Think of an architect with a blueprint. Before the building exists, there is only paper and ink. To an untrained eye, it seems like nothing more than lines and sketches. But the architect is loyal to the blueprint. They know that in time, brick and stone will conform to the design. Your imagination is the blueprint, and faith is your loyalty to it. If you waver, the structure falters. If you persist, the structure rises exactly as drawn. Faith is not wishful thinking. It is not hoping that something might happen. It is the conviction that it is already accomplished in the unseen, and therefore it must, in time, show itself in the seen. It does not negotiate with facts or conditions. It stands unmoved until the facts bow to the vision. Faith is creative loyalty, the choice to align yourself again and again with the inner reality, no matter what the senses report. So remain steadfast. Choose to believe the unseen more than you believe the visible. Let the inner vision be your guide, your anchor, your truth. The facts will change, the appearances will dissolve, but your loyalty to the unseen will carry you through every resistance. For what you dare to believe and remain faithful to in imagination must become flesh in your world. That is the law, and faith is its key. Every word spoken has been a reminder that your destiny is not shaped by chance, but by the vision you dare to hold within yourself. Imagination plants the seed, persistence nourishes it, faith protects it, and rest allows it to bloom. Resistance, delay, and appearances may rise against you, but they are powerless before your inner certainty. The truth is simple yet profound. Your inner state is the cause, and the outer world must bow to it. Hold fast. Keep going, for you are closer than you think. The life you long for is already yours in the unseen, and if you remain faithful, it will appear in your world with perfect certainty. Thank you for giving your time and heart to this message. May you walk away not just inspired, but transformed, resting in the assurance that what you have claimed within is already accomplished. Stay faithful, stay steadfast, and above all, keep going.